Hey, everybody, welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast, episode 200. Really appreciate you guys listening and showing your support for 200 podcast episodes now. It's hard to believe that we've made it this far. I'm Sam Thrash. I'm your show host over here at Fall Obsession Podcast. And for a milestone episode like this, I'm always debating what should we record about? Should I have somebody special on? Should we do a special podcast? Should it just be a normal episode? What do we need to do? And one individual stuck in my mind straight out of the gate, and that was Johnny Mack from Soul Seekers. Really good friend of mine, both within and outside of the hunting community now. And yeah, he was the perfect choice to have on our show for a milestone episode like this. And we talk for a very, very long time. You guys will hear that this is a very long podcast episode, or you'll see it on the app. But hope you enjoy this conversation. We talk about all sorts of different stuff. We talk about podcasting. We talk about the struggles with that. We talk about just being humans, about being people in this world today, about being hunters, about living with passion and drive and pride and ownership. Um, it's just, he's a truly inspiring individual, and this is a truly inspiring conversation per the usual with him. So, hope you guys enjoy. We're going to get over to the episode here in just a second. Before we get there, though, I got to hit a few things. The first one being Hoot Camo is a podcast partner. Started rocking Hoot gear last year in 2023. First hunt I wore it on was a Colorado mule deer hunt, and I can't say enough about my Hoot gear. The quality of the product, the sustainability of it, how well it works in the elements, the functionality of the pattern, it's all there. It's all inclusive, and it's everything that the modern day outdoorsman is looking for in a high quality set of gear. The best part about it is it's at a price point that is realistic for the everyday hunter and outdoorsman. So if you're looking to get into a new set of camouflage, I recommend you go check out Hoot Camo. And even if you don't want to order a full set, you can also check out their fishing, lifestyle, or golf gear that they have on their website. And if you use the code FallObsession15, that will save you some money at checkout. HootCamo.com. News on Safaris is a podcast partner. Several folks that we know, including our very own Western Regional Staff Coordinator Tim, has hunted with News On multiple times and had a great experience. If you're spending that kind of money and you're wanting to go down to Africa on a safari, then we want to make sure that you're doing it with the right people. So News On is offering a special deal for anybody that books with them that tells them that Fall Obsession sent you. You'll get a $500 trophy credit, free lodging, food, and drinks. Your professional hunter, skinners, and trackers are all covered, the fees for those. Basic trophy prep is taken care of, and you can have all that done for up to 4 people, and that's a $2,250 value per person. Do the math on that. For 4 people, that's $9,000 in savings potentially. So if you're looking to book an African safari, you need to do it with News On. Give Tim a call at 303-946-9441, and he will work with you on getting everything set up. Make sure that you tell him Fall Obsession sent you. The Outdoor Call Radio app is a podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession podcast streaming on that loop on Mondays, the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. Go download the Outdoor Call Radio app today. It is free, and you can start streaming immediately. And be sure that you follow Outdoors Dan on social media. He does a couple of different live radio show broadcasts at local Midwestern radio stations every week. And even if you're not local to those stations, you can catch those live broadcasts on his social media. Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call Radio app, go check him out. Elite Archery is a Fall Obsession partner. I've been shooting an elite bow for several seasons now, and I love it. I have an ethos on the way, and I cannot wait to shoot that bow in 2024, hunting whitetail and hopefully some elk even with it. Looking forward to it. I can sit up here and talk to you guys all day long about how great Elite Archery is, but the only way that you are going to make an educated decision for yourself is if you go shoot one. So head on over to your local elite dealer and take the Elite Shootability Challenge. Put it in your hand, put some arrows through it, see what you think, compare it to your bow, compare it to other bows, and develop your own opinion about it. Technology in the archery industry changes very quickly. Elite has taken full advantage of that. So be sure that you ask the techs at the shop all the details about the Elite bows that you're trying out, and let us know what you think. You won't be disappointed. Last but not least, Ridge Rock Hunt Company is a podcast partner. If you are looking to book that next adventure, that next once-in-a-lifetime bucket list hunt you've been saving up for, whatever it might be in the United States of America, in North America, you need to give Derek Eves a call. He will work with you on all the details and find something that works for you with a trusted and vetted outfitter in his network. Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Derek Eves is the man. Go check him out. Once again, thank you guys very much for tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast, episode 200 at that. I'm super excited for this episode and this conversation. If you guys are not already following Fall Obsession on social media, please head on over to whatever social media platform you're active on and give us a like and a follow. We really appreciate that. We post daily. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to this episode on, be sure that you like, follow, subscribe, whatever they have up there for you. Turn the notifications on if that's an option so you get notified every time we drop a new podcast. Head on over to fallobsession.com. That's the website. Everything filters through there. You can pick you up a hat or a t-shirt if you're so inclined. And be sure you check out our shows on Carbon TV. This podcast, our Couch Chats video staff-inspired series is on there, as well as our two different hunting shows, Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. Go check out all those shows. If you guys can't support us in any other way other than liking and sharing our posts and our content, then that is all that we ask. That is how we help grow this brand. That's how you can help us build. And we just appreciate the support and hope you guys find it in you to hit that like and share button. We always appreciate it. With that, we are heading over to our episode 200 conversation with Johnny Mack from Soul Seekers. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to another Fall Obsession Podcast, episode 200.
Woo!
We made it. I'm super stoked, and I am on here with my guest from Soul Seekers, Johnny Mack, back on the show. Welcome back, man.
Oh, brother, Sam, thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
It's fun being here to be a part of your 200th episode. That's a major accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. I always debate this with what I refer to as milestone episodes, right?
Yep.
I always debate like, well, should I do something special or should I not? Should it just be a normal podcast with whoever we have on. And I know that was a debate I had back when we did episode 100. And what we ended up doing was just having our admin team ended up getting together and just kind of talking about Fall Obsession. It was kind of just a hangout episode pretty much, but we were just we were talking about the growth and some of the successes and the struggles, over 100 episodes and stuff. And I'm sure this conversation will cover some of that as well, but I was just trying to think with this one. I was like, man, same dilemma. Like, what am I going to do for 200? What am I going to do? And you were the first guy I thought of. I was like, I want to do something special, and who better to have back on the show than Johnny Mack?
Well, the last time we did a recording together, it was a blast.
Yes.
You've been on my show. We've had a great time. I've been on yours. It's like, you just jive with certain guests.
Yes.
Obviously, you're a podcast host, so it's easy to be on a mic and, talk, but you're a good person. You got a great family, amazing platform. Fall Obsession is incredible. And anyone who is not obsessed yet, it's time to get obsessed.
Our hashtag that we that our staff uses is stay obsessed.
Stay obsessed.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's the motto and something we live by for sure. But
I love it.
no, man, I appreciate you saying that. I'm happy to have you back on here. It as you know, and I guess I'll start off with this. Like we're in the same realm,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a journey, right? It's not something where there's necessarily, I know we have goals, but it's not something where there's like a finish line, right? You keep plugging away. And that's something that I had to learn through podcasting, was that, I'm at what point am I done? Well, I'm never really done. I got to keep going, I got to keep doing it. And I know that there's folks that, we have our show now for a little over 4 years. I know there's people who have dished out more than 200 episodes in that time frame. That being said, there's been some weeks where, we've missed a week or whatever it might have been.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very consistent lately, and we're trying to keep that going. But it's a grind, man. It is not something that you just, I'll figure out what I'm going to talk about this time, or I might record an episode today or whatever. It's just, I enjoy this part. This part is the best part, when you're sitting down talking to somebody else and getting to know them. Like, everything else goes out the window. I feel like I'm my truest self on this show.
Yeah.
But scheduling episodes, trying to work on a publication and content production schedule and all that kind of stuff, man, it's as you know, it's a grind.
Dude, it's tough. It's I just, in the month of June, I went on a 10-day vacation. Well, 10 days is a week and a half.
Right.
And so I release episode weekly, which means I had to have episodes ready to go and prepared to launch on days while I'm gone,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not within cell service. And there's a lot of lead up before that. And then you come back and you're like, okay, well, I just crammed so many podcast recordings leading up to it. And now I got to start stacking them again.
Yeah.
Because I was off for a couple weeks. But either way, I totally agree with you. Like, scheduling and the hassle and being like, oh, okay, I want to make sure I get a good guest, an entertaining guest. But at the same time, someone who's going to be beneficial to my audience, your
Right.
audience, right? Like, I get hit up every now and then for people that want to be a guest on the show. And the majority of the time, these people that want to be guests aren't necessarily the best guests.
Right.
It's like, okay, yes, they can fill a void or, make my life easier and be like, okay, sure, let's just schedule one. But ultimately, it's your show, Fall Obsession, your podcast, Soul Seekers, mine. It's like, okay, well, what do we want from this? And then, keep that focus. Sometimes, let me take a step back. It was very impressive to see you do a solo episode this year.
I wanted to talk about that because, and I know I mentioned in that first solo podcast, if anybody listened to it, episode 186. I know I mentioned in that episode how I was very weary about doing it, and obviously 185 episodes where it's a conversation between two or more people.
Yeah.
And yes, it was a little scary, but you were the biggest motivator in that. Hey man, go for it. And you talked about the benefits of it, not just from a listener standpoint, but from the person hosting, from their standpoint, and the cathartic effect that it has. And man, it certainly did. Like, and I remember you listened to that podcast and you texted me the next day or whenever it was, and we're talking to me about it, and you're like, how do you feel, man? Like, I thought you were gonna hang up the show there for a second. You could tell that I was in a slump at the time a little bit. But,
yeah, well, it's so interesting that, well, first off, it's not normal to be in a room by yourself and talk out loud.
Right.
And I have so much inner dialogue with myself. At times, it's too much. Like, this is why I go run, and I run without headphones, or I drive in a car silent, is because I want to hear my thoughts and have conversation with my thoughts. But to speak out loud to yourself is a whole nother, like, it's a mind trip a little bit.
It is.
It takes practice to look into a camera and be like, hey, I'm talking to all of you, but really I'm talking to myself because I'm by myself right now.
And man, that I didn't realize it. That was one of the hardest things because we do the video version too, and that was one of the hardest things was looking at the camera for 45 minutes or however long I rambled on. It's like I can't go back and watch the video because I feel like I'm like a little kid just looking up at the ceiling and looking around and everything, and I do that a little bit, but I feel like with those episodes I was really able to dive in deep to some topics.
Yeah.
And since then have been able to do it 2 more times with I believe we published them as 190 and 195, our solo episodes again, talking about I went deep on an archery rampage in 190, just talking about my bow only mentality. It's those things that are on your mind, right?
Yeah.
It's there's certain topics or things that are weighing on you, good or bad, that maybe you want to just get out and talk about. And okay, so you don't have a guest to talk about it with. Well, there's a way that you can carry on a conversation. You can do a podcast solo.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one of the most interesting thing is, as a consumer of media, I listen to podcasts. I don't typically listen to hunting podcasts, ironically.
yeah.
I used to back when I was getting into hunting, but now that I'm in the podcast game, I'm more on the political side of stuff. Like, I'd rather listen to a political podcast. I don't, watch mainstream media or anything like that. So, give me a couple good rabbit holes and tinfoil hat and I'm golden, baby. Let's go. But with that being said is, I have a lot to say.
Right.
And more often than not, I constantly have to challenge my courage to voice what I want to say and what I truly believe and how I feel and what I have in my head. The world needs, the world wants. And I'm not saying like celebrity status wants, but like I'm here to contribute to this world.
Right.
And if I'm holding that within myself, then I'm doing this world a disservice.
Yeah.
And the problem is about having a guest on every time is that you're telling their story and you're not telling your story.
Right.
And a lot of times when I've listened to podcasts, especially certain hosts, they will cut off their guests constantly and or make it more about them the entire time rather than the highlight of the guest, which everything has its place. But I don't enjoy that as much as a listener.
I understand that, and I think there's a line, right? Because I've recorded with some guests that, we'll be talking about. I'll just use hypothetically, a mule deer hunt, and then they'll ask me, "Well, have you ever hunted mule deer?" And obviously, I have this great mule deer story from last year that I've shared so many times. I've shared it on your show.
Yeah.
You had me on for an episode, and I've shared it on our platform, it seems like, many times because people ask me about it on my show. And it's like, well, I don't want to not answer this person's question, but I also, like, I've told this story on my show so many times. I don't want people to get bored with it. That's the other side of it and everything. But and it was like I mentioned to you earlier today, the guys on the Outdoor Drive podcast had me on as a guest not that long ago. And they asked me about the mule deer hunt, and it took me a second to like get in the rhythm of telling it because I was almost like programmed, like, here I am on a podcast again talking about my mule deer hunt, but it was like I had to snap myself out of my show and put myself in the guest seat, and it's like, okay, these aren't my listeners, this isn't my show, like I need to share this story, right? So and
kind of like this fear of like, oh no, I'm monologuing,
right?
Like, oh, I haven't paused enough. No, I totally get that. Yeah. So that is something I find, beyond the inner voice in our head, we have to get it out. At the same time, hosting a podcast for knowledge, for inspiration, for stories, getting these other guests can spur on your own conversation.
Right.
And then we're just like the rudder on a ship, right? The wind is going to blow and it's going to take us wherever, but we're in control of the direction of the conversation and what we ultimately want to get out of it for our listeners, which makes it fun and what sets Fall Obsession apart from Soul Seekers and vice versa.
Right, exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. I've had, through the show, and I've talked about this before too. Here's something right here that I've said so many times on the show, right? But how many amazing people and connections that I've made through this show.
Yeah.
You sitting here is one of them.
Yep.
Is one of the big ones. But you meet interesting people and people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, and there have been some episodes. You talked about how you had guests reach out to you wanting to come on the show, and you're like, man, it's not the best guest. I've had those as well. I've also had guests that I thought would be good guests, and then after the fact, I'm like, I feel like I'm getting some fallout from this podcast, honestly. And an example I get, and not that he was a bad guest, it's just not your traditional guest, but I'll use an example. I had a gentleman named Charles Beatty on our show who is known as the Prince of Poachers. Mm-hmm. In the 80s and 90s, this dude was an outlaw and a criminal poaching deer. And now he's an old man and he's telling these stories and everything. He has changed his ways and his thinking on things, but man, having him on my show, like I don't go and read the comments on the YouTube or anything like that on those episodes, because there's plenty of people on there that are fans of his, right? That just find the episode because they're looking for something with him in it. Uh-huh. But then there's also plenty of people that are criticizing.
Yeah, like how could you put that story and that information out there?
Why would you talk to this guy? Why would you have him on your show? Yeah. And all this other kind of stuff. And I was just kind of, that in particular, I was a little overwhelmed with that, because I get the comments every now and then like, this, the show host sucks, or he's not interactive enough, or my favorite one was, this dude has the personality of a mop. That's one guy commented on one of our videos and said that, which I get, man. You and I have different personalities. You listen to your show, you listen to mine. Like you are more energetic than me. One example, just comparing you since you're sitting here, but some dude just got onto social media and was like, this dude's got the personality of a mop. It's like, dude, if you don't want to listen, don't listen. I don't care.
Well, it just goes to show, like, you are the man in the arena, right? Your face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood. You're striving valiantly. You err. You come short again and again, but there is no effort without error.
Right.
It is you who is in the arena, who's actually doing it. And all these people, that want to comment, it's like, listen, I don't know if I've ever shared this on a podcast before. This is brand new.
Okay. Original content from Johnny Mack coming up.
Y'all cannot steal this idea, by the way. So I was on a cruise ship one time. I was cruising. It was my very first time cruising. And I was looking around at humanity on this cruise ship.
It's a good place to do it.
Yeah, it's a great place to do it. It's kind of like going to Walmart with a little more sunshine and more swimsuits. But I'm a school teacher by trade. I've been doing it for 17, 18 years. And I deal with humanity. I deal with the best of humanity and the worst of humanity. Kind of like a police officer.
Yeah.
Right? But they more deal with
they deal with the worst of the worst.
More often than not. They get the ones that are difficult for me. They see more on a regular basis. The point of it is, and disclaimer is, this is not a judgment call on people as far as like I'm judging you for not being good enough or smart enough or anything. This is just an observation. I like to say this. This is feedback. Feedback is neither negative nor positive. It's how the listener receives it.
Right.
And if they're offended, then that means it landed with you. Like, oh, it struck a nerve, so that means you have a belief about yourself in that manner.
Right.
If it doesn't land with you, then you don't believe that about yourself. Which I have a whole great story about that as well. But before I do, I'll share about the cruise. Being a school teacher and knowing that C's get degrees, right? If you get a C, you're passing. You can go get a college degree with nothing but C's the entire time. The problem with that is to get a C in public education is not hard. Right. You just have to show up every day and then turn work in. It doesn't even have to be the best work. Like, just
Right.
don't not do anything. And so with that mentality, and I'm looking at the world, I'm just like, man. By the way, I don't consider myself high and mighty in any means, but I'm looking at the world, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of rude people out here. Man, there's a lot of ugly people out here. Man, there's a lot of stupid people out here. And I was like, man, it's like, if C's get degrees, then like that means C's average. And the majority of a bell curve falls within that middle range of average. And I'm like, so the majority of humans fall into one of three categories. The worst is when you fall into multiple. If you're rude, stupid, and ugly. that's you are gonna have a hard life at that point. But with that being said, is like, you know, you look out at humanity, and are you, you know, doing your best? Are you putting your best out to the world? Are you doing something that is inspiring, motivational, that is leaving an impact, creating a legacy? Because at the end of the day, you know, it's only, 2 generations and someone's never going to remember our name.
Right.
It's only 2 generations away, and then no one's ever going to be speaking about you ever again. Unless you create a legacy that makes an impact in the lives of other people, and leaves your imprint on society. So, as a podcast host, as a hunter, as staying obsessed, as whatever it is, whether you hunt, you don't hunt, you fish, you are just a good parent or employee or business owner or whatever, or just a good human being, like that, create your legacy and live and enjoy it. Because if we go by this looking out on the world and be like, man, a lot of rude, stupid, and ugly, it doesn't take that much to rise to the top.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's supposed to be a motivational thing for you. So if that,
Right, yeah.
So if that landed on you like rude, stupid, and ugly, oh, I can't believe he's talking about me. Well, I'm sorry. It doesn't take that much to get a little more.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I like the way you framed it there for sure. It should be motivational. It should be. I would hope that kind of thing would be encouraging. You were talking about, you know, the public education, right, and how you can get a degree with all C's basically, and it's like, well, who are the A's? And it's the people who care about the C. It's the people who care about the B. They're like, I can do better than that. It's where they have a greater value to themselves, and they hold themselves to a higher standard. So when they get that C or they get that B, they're like, that's not an A. I should be getting an A.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm using that as a hypothetical example, but I just sat, you know, and for anybody that's a new listener, you know, I'm a full-time firefighter, and I just sat on our interview panel, right? And out of 40 people that we took to interviews, we only passed 14 of them.
That makes sense, because the majority of human beings fall into the C's.
Well, and
bell curve
so
middle.
I saw it more with this group than I have, because it's not my first interview panel to be on, but I saw it more with this group than I ever have. And there were so many people that just, they were in their, you know, they might be 19 or they're in their early 20s, and there's just nothing there, man. There's just nothing there. And then you had a couple of one-offs that are like in their late 30s, and there's just nothing there. It's like, dude, what have you been doing?
Yeah, where have you been?
Where have you been? But I noticed a pattern, and that was with those that were in the early 20 range. I was thinking about after the fact, it's like, well, during 2020, 2021, that window, COVID, there was a lot of education that was online. And you can argue that made it easier for some people maybe to, you know, to get a degree or whatever it might be. Or then you obviously have the missing piece of social interaction with humanity, period. And then I also noticed, just from the employment standpoint, that from the 2020 to now range, in that 4-year range, there were a lot of people that had, for 2 or 3 years in that time frame, a warehouse job, that worked for Amazon or UPS or Nebraska Furniture Mart or something like that, where you just apply for a job, you get it, you show up, you're told, hey,
Do this.
this is your job, this is what you do every day. You call in sick, oh, okay, whatever, it's your sick day. It's just, you're doing one task constantly every day. You're not interacting with other than the guy standing next to you pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about that. I was like, man, that hurt culture as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
just as far as the and I feel like we're getting way off on a rabbit trail now, but as far as just the humanity, America, I feel like that hurt a new generation of workers,
Yeah.
or in my realm, a new generation of firefighters. Because when you come and want to work with me, I want to know, why do you want to work there? I want to know what your values as a person are. I want to see some passion and drive and some interest. And so many people would just sit across the table from me, and they're just looking for the next paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
And in this sense, that's not what I'm looking for. That's not who I want to work with, So, and that can be applied to any other field, but I was blown away with when I just kind of sat back and reflected on it. I was like, man, things have changed. Things have changed.
Yeah, things have changed. I will say that hope deferred makes the heart sick. So when hope is removed from the situation, or from a human being, from a person, it doesn't make people. People then react to a situation and choose a life that they might not normally choose. It might have put them into survival mode rather than thrive mode. And it is the next paycheck because I went without one for a while, or the list goes on. I mean,
Right,
ultimately,
and I get that.
And I'll tell you right now, I don't work to live.
Yeah.
I live to work.
And-
Wait, no. Did I say that backwards? Yeah, I work to live. I don't live to work. So I'm not like,
Right.
I'm a school teacher. I think about papers and, how can I get this one student from a D to a C, or, I don't stay up at night thinking that.
Yeah.
My job is my job, and then I go home and I'm like, all right, how can I be a better husband, a better father?
Right.
How can I continue to grow soul seekers? How can I be a better hunter?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How can I provide more food for my family this coming fall?
I would say, I would agree with that I don't live to work, but at the same time, I have, and you've seen it, I have a very strong passion for my job.
Absolutely.
So I feel blessed in that regard, that I look forward to my job. I enjoy my job. I put value and take pride in my job and what I do. And I want to see that from other people. But at the same time, if I wasn't getting paid by the fire department, I would be doing something else. At the end of the day, that's how it is.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, there can only be one chief. You have multiple Indians, you can only have one chief.
I'm an Indian, and I'm gonna stay an Indian.
Yeah, you're a chief there, big chief. Anyways, but yeah, so I digress.
We both do.
Yeah, rude, stupid, and ugly, man. C's get degrees. And if you want something more out of life, then go get it.
Mm-hmm.
I constantly am struggling. I'm like, oh, dude, I want to make more money, but sometimes money, it equates to time, and my time is so valuable. I'm like, okay, do my kids need me more, or does my family need money more? Right? Or, it's like, what do I have to trade off in order to,
Right. No, you don't make any more time. You only have so much of it, and that's something that I've had to learn the hard way too, is just managing that, whether it's hunting, podcasting, work, obviously family and all that kind of stuff, and making sure that you're maintaining a healthy balance. And then I know for me, trying to plan ahead when that is, because, we have example, projects come up, you want to build something, you want to do something around the house or the property, whatever. Well, it's going to cost more money. Okay. I'll pick up an overtime shift. Well, now I'm working overtime. Now I'm gone for 3 days instead of 2, you know, and so it all trickles down to what's the sacrifice that you're making.
Yeah.
So,
well, speaking of sacrifice, thanks for having me and my boys up to the fire station recently.
yeah, man, I'm glad that y'all were able to make it up. It was a good time. Your boys ate it up.
Shout out to Hoot Camo right there.
Nice
session sponsor.
Nice organic integration. I love it.
Go get yourself some Hoot Camo. Anyway, so after that day, did I tell you that I think I tore my rotator cuff again?
You were talking to me when you got there, shooting your bow, right?
Dude, okay, so let's talk hunting for a second.
Yeah.
I come from the West. I have a 34-inch axle-to-axle bow.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it's huge, but when you're sitting in a ground blind and you're trying not to make any noise, those extra 4 inches really make a difference. And so this last year, when I got in the hunting blind for the very first time, learning the ways of Texas whitetail hunting, I drew my bow back, or I attempted to draw my bow back, and I got caught with a deer staring at me, and me halfway through my draw cycle not being able to get my bow back all the way because sitting in a chair in a blind caused me to draw differently than I could normally when I just stand up and hunt those majestic elk out west. So going into this season, I'm aware of that. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to start practicing drawing differently to prepare myself for the hunt. I've also wanted to get a 30-inch axle-to-axle, and now I totally understand why whitetail hunters are always short bow dudes.
After your story, I want to talk about axle to axle because you got my archery brain going over here. So
okay, so needless to say, I drew my bow back, and I've already had 11 years ago rotator cuff surgery. I got a tack in my shoulder, 6 incisions, horrible recovery. I'm right-handed. It's my right hand, right arm, my draw arm, and so I draw my bow, and I'm like, ooh, that hurts. I got it back. Got into my normal shooting position, shot, and I was like, I am not, and I put my bow down for the day. I was like, I'm not shooting anymore. Yeah. Then I'm driving after the fire station, and I swing my arm around behind my driver's seat, and then that was like, it sent my shoulder off into another realm. So my wife scheduled me, my wife, by the way, it's not that I can't schedule my own appointments, but she works in a hospital. So she's like, you need to see this orthopedic surgeon. He's the guy to go to. She's like, I'll schedule you an appointment because I call their office all the time. I'm like, perfect, thank you. Get me in. I'm like, all right, doc, I've had surgery before. I know what it's like. I know the pain. Here's what I'm experiencing. I think it's torn, could not be. It's also very new. Normally, I allow time in before going in to see a doctor. He's like, well, you want good news or bad news? And I'm like, man, just give me all the news.
Yeah.
He's like, you definitely need an MRI, and I think it's torn.
Oh.
And I'm like, air out of the tire, just whoosh.
Yeah.
No, man. This is the first year of like having time before a season of knowing like, okay, I'm going to dedicate to archery hunting this year because last year I didn't kill my deer until rifle season, and then that cost time with my children out hunting because I needed to make sure the story goes on. The point being is over the weekend I can't lose my archery season.
Yeah.
I can't, I was like, do I get a crossbow? Do I get a bite tab? Do I just not hunt archery? Do I have surgery right away? Will I be recovered by rifle season? My mind is just, that inner dialogue that I talked about earlier is just all over the place. So I also have not missed a day of burpees since January 1st. 100
Congratulations
burpees a day.
on that.
Thank you. With vacations or travel or whatever, I've been consistent. The day I hurt my arm, I didn't do my burpees before I did my burpees before I shot my bow because I did, like a lift, run, shoot. Like, do a workout, I went on a run and shot my bow. The next day, I didn't do my burpees, and I was waiting until like nighttime. And so I was like, my wife's like, you got to take a day off. You got to do it. And I'm like, I can't take a day off of a commitment to myself that I said I'm going to do 365 days of 100 burpees a day.
Yeah.
And so I got down on the ground. I was like, I don't even know if this is going to hurt me or not, but if I have to go slow, I'll go slow. I'll
get there.
wince my way through this. And I got down on the ground and I had pain, but I didn't have pain like I expected.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh. So I crushed my 100, and then the weekend goes by and I'm still able to do my burpees. I have to adjust my hands in wider. I can't, or narrow. I can't do wide hand push-ups. And so I send it a video of myself drawing my bow to a buddy out, and shout out to James Appleton of Seek to Do More. He is an archery hunter up in the Adirondack Mountains of New York.
Oh, wow.
And he actually hosts a podcast, of 46 podcast, all about the 46 peaks of the Adirondack Park.
Huh.
So James, he sees this video and he goes, dude, you draw your bow weird. And he's like, your elbow's down, all this. I'm like, well, yeah, because I had shoulder surgery prior to getting into archery hunting, and the only way that felt normal was for me to keep my elbow low and draw like in a straight motion from my front hand to my back hand.
Yeah.
You know, you see on social media all these guys that sometimes I wonder if it's for show, where they put their bow up in the air and then they draw and they come down.
So let me ask you, you've shot with me. Do I do that? Because guys have told me that I sky draw.
I mean, there's a little...
I know I'm elevated and I come down onto my target. But I don't feel like I sky draw.
And so that was one of the things when I got into archery. People were like, dude, draw on target. Draw on target, because I've had a release break and then all of a sudden you're in the air and that arrow goes whoosh, into oblivion or to your neighbor's house, and then you got some serious issues. So I always learned to draw on target. Yeah. Put the tip of my arrow where I'm aiming and pull that bow back. Well, so my buddy James, he's like, dude, you draw weird. He goes, and you're drawing all with your shoulder. You need to put your elbow up and then draw with your lat. And so I went today for the very first time, and I put my elbow up, which caused me to have to hold the bow a little more skyish.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm still in my head, like, keep my arrow at my target. And then, like, in a half moon,
okay,
pulling down.
Yeah.
With my lat rather than a back motion. And I was able to, I know all y'all listening to this podcast won't be able to see this right now, but I'm going to show you this, because this was my first reaction.
I want to see it.
On this is,
I'm always curious, and I want to ask you too. I'll take a look at it, but I want to, like, how you think it's going to translate into a ground blind, because that's where you started the conversation.
We're going full circle. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's this video.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn the audio up, put it next to the mic. So the phone's on the ground just staring up at me. Elbow up.
Yeah.
Bow high.
See, I feel like that is how I draw a bow.
And I'm like, holy crap, it just worked.
Huh.
And so...
Holy smokes.
It worked.
So that was me drawing my bow today.
Yeah.
In that motion. I then was like, okay, I did it once, you can do it again. And then I have such muscle memory that I hurt my arm a little bit again, or my shoulder, because as much as the concept was like, oh, okay, I can get this, I have to retrain myself how to shoot my bow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how's that going to translate into a bow blind? I don't know if I'm going to be able to, or I'm going to have to get like a super short, like little kid stool and sit on a tiny stool, or shoot from my knees or something.
Yeah. I know, and bringing me to what I wanted to mention with the axle stuff, because, when I worked in a bow shop, which at this point has been like 10 years ago,
It's been that long?
It's been a minute. but when I worked in a bow shop, and there were so many guys that would come in, and they're like, oh, I got to have the, Matthews just came out with a 28 inch, or Hoyt just came out with this, or Elite this. I got to have that compact bow. That way, I'm not hitting the roof of my ground blind, not hitting branches in my tree stand, or whatever it may be. And first off, if you're worried about hitting branches in your tree stand, you can trim branches. That's my first feedback on that. But there were so many people that were worried about that. And bows have changed. Like in the last 10 years, bows have changed a lot. But if you look at just the physical traits of a bow today compared to 10, 15 years ago, the first thing you're going to notice is the cam size. The cams today are so much bigger.
Yeah, they're massive.
They're massive, and they're great. Like it all, that and plenty of other things all translate into, why we have these smooth draw cycles and these fast bows, and why we're able to do all this kind of stuff. You can toss that blanket if it's
awesome
getting in your way.
let-off.
Awesome let off. Like the cams and the mods that they're making right now are all the reasons for this. But what was explained to me at one point, it was like a light bulb went off when I heard this. They're like, well, if your axle to axle is 34, what's your string angle? Because if you think about the axle to axle is measured from the pin of the axle to the pin of the axle, right?
Yeah.
But then you could have another 2 inches on either side of string angle because of how big your cam is. So your string angle is more like 38. The opposite side of everything, right? You had the guys that were coming in wanting to buy a bow that was super compact for all these reasons. You also had guys that were super worried about knock pinch, about their knock, their string angle being so severe that it was pinching their knock and causing their arrow to actually, at full draw, pinch so tight that it elevates off of the arrow rest slightly, which then is an accuracy and a tuning issue and all these other problems. There were so many guys that were worried about that. They're like, I can't shoot. I'm not shooting a bow that's more narrow than 34. It's got to be 34 or more. Like, that's the only way I'm going to shoot a bow. So I'm like a happy medium, right? I've shot a 28-inch axle bow that had these big cams on it. So my axle was honestly closer to like 31, 32. My string angle, I should say. The bow I have right now is 32, and my string angle is probably closer to that 34 and a half mark, right in there. So I guess that's my feedback for you, is if you're looking for a smaller bow, don't, think about the advantage that you can have, right?
Totally.
Being a taller dude, we have roughly the same draw length, having that longer draw length with your string angle that the cams are going to provide, you're probably not going to see any accuracy difference in how well you're able to shoot a more compact bow compared to your bow right now.
Yeah.
As long as it's set up right.
Yep.
So.
And by the way, Sam's super smart. He knows his stuff, and I
fake it till I make it, man.
Well, hey, let's go, baby. So, 4 inches is enough. And so like
we're gonna cut just that out, and that's gonna be the preview.
4 inches will get you there.
Quote Johnny Mack.
So I already have my eye on the bow. PSE. I shoot a PSE Carbon Stealth. When was 2017? I got it in 2018. Okay, so it was one of their earlier carbon bows. Great shooting bow, horrible grip. Like, it causes so many torque issues that tuning that bow is a pain in the tush. With that being said, I've learned how to shoot it. Now, PSE have wanted to get a new bow for quite some time, but PSE finally came out with this year. I think Outdoor Life called it their top bow award or whatever. It's a 30-inch carbon bow. Shoots like it's a 34 axle, but it's a 30. And the grip is fixed, and it's right up my alley.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a new pair of shoes.
What are they saying when they describe that, as far as it's a 30-inch but it shoots like a 34? I'm curious, because you're tapping into my passion here.
Yeah.
What are they saying makes it do that?
Smoothness of the draw cycle. Because aren't shorter axles rough around their draw?
They can be. It also has to do with your brace height too.
I think this has a longer brace height.
A longer brace height on a shorter bow is going to help. When you put a shorter brace height on any bow, it's going to be more aggressive, but especially a shorter bow.
It balances nice. Yeah, when not full draw, you don't get a lot of twist in your front hand. It naturally wants to sit straight.
Awesome.
And I think that has to do with the grip that they changed, because my grip is...
Man, I mean, as you know, you caught me eating. As you know, we're sponsored by Elite over here at Fall Obsession, so I've been shooting Elite for a long time, but when I worked at the bow shop, that was the one thing about PSE that I just could not get over, was the grips.
Yeah.
I could not get over it. And I shot Hoyt for a long time when I worked at the bow shop, which normally does, but it also is kind of user dependent, because everybody grips a bow differently. Everybody's hand's different, right? Yeah. And an example at the time, again, this is 10 plus years ago, a normal Hoyt grip back then, I was torquing the crap out of it. And I could not get a bow to tune until I completely took the grip off. I took the grip off of my Hoyt bows.
Interesting.
And then I could tune. Then I could shoot.
So with my PSE, I've had to adjust my grip multiple times to figure out like what was going on.
Right.
You know, being a newer archery hunter, I was like, okay, well, how are other people holding their bows? And, you know, you look at Cam Haynes, and, you know, a lot of people, they'll take their two fingers and they'll just put those on the front of the handle. Then you get the people, and you can always tell, like, don't grip a bow like it's a baseball bat.
Right.
But, yeah, people that do that. Then it's like, okay, well, what's natural? And so for me, to not torque my bow, I actually never put fingers on.
Right.
I just let the tension, keep it rested right in that crease. But then I was still getting torque issues. And so my bow guy was like, well, drive your thumb towards your target. And so I was actually...
So you're pushing into it more with your palm.
Yes.
At that point. Okay, yeah.
With my thumb. And so I'm at full draw, and it's like every archery hunter needs to have a set of mental checklists before you shoot, and to make sure that you're calm and you're not like all over the place. So, you know, a lot of people are like, okay, am I anchored? Am I anchored? Or is my elbow up? You know, for me, it's like thumb at target.
Yeah.
Thumb at target. And I'm driving my thumb at that target, and then pop.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. And it's interesting for me to hear how, how different people have learned or adjusted with their grips and everything, because, and I want to ask you, you say that you shoot with no fingers really on the end of the bow. Do you have a wrist sling? I don't recall.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you rely on that wrist sling, or do your fingers?
I naturally will grab the bow after I shoot.
You naturally grab it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was one thing that I noticed when I was working as a bow tech. And, you know, you work with so many customers and so many people that come in to get their bows tuned. Every bow brand under the sun, and then some that you've never even seen before that aren't even being made. And everybody shoots differently. And that was one thing that was interesting, was learning how to teach people that are gripping it different ways that is not helping them. That, you know, because I can pick up a bow, being a tech and knowing how to shoot, and shoot it through paper and go through that checklist in my mind and get it to tune. But when the customer comes in, I'm like, hey, I want you to shoot it through paper because you're going to hold this bow different than I do.
Right.
And then some of them are like, no, just tune it to me. And then there's others that are receptive to the feedback, right on, hey, you should think about this with your grip for these reasons. But my point is, I've seen so many people, and why I ask you that, when their hands are open like that,
they cut their fingers off with their...
They don't cut their fingers off. Like, that's their concern for sure. But their hands are open. But when they shoot, they come back and they grab it so tight, so quickly when they release, that it's still torquing the bow. Yep. It's messing up the whole shot. And typically they are all over the place with their shots when they're trying to dial it in. There's people, and this is normally what I do when I come to full draw. I was taught early on, push in with your palm, and you want basically to imagine that the weight of the bow coming back on your hand is going down your palm down your arm,
Yeah.
you know, through your bones and everything back into your shoulder. But you also don't want to be locked out, right? And I'm super double jointed in my arms.
Oh, so you want to bend your elbow in.
So I relax my arm. I have just barely a bend. And by me trying to push right into this part of my palm right here, like, you know, there's that line that kind of runs, you know, side, you know, at an angle through the center of your palm, right there on that pad underneath your thumb, pushing in right there, that turns that whole forearm and the place you normally get slapped, you know, with the string and everything, that turns it down out of the way. I relax my arm. But I put my fingers on the end. And when I first started shooting, I had a really good archery coach. And he was noticing, he's like, you're putting your fingers on the end, but he's like, you're still grabbing it. And he compared it to shooting a pistol. He was like, when you're shooting a pistol, right, you want your finger to be reasonably firm and centered on that trigger. Because if you're only using the point of your finger, the tip of your finger, you're actually going to pull your sight when you shoot a little bit to the right if you're right-handed.
Straight back so the gun's straight
If
forward.
you're wrapping all the way around, you're going to maybe push it back to the opposite direction. So he compared it to that, and so I was like, you're right. So I got in the habit of just relaxing 2 fingers on the end of my bow, just mainly for just the peace of mind that's not going to fly out of my hand.
Yeah.
Like, it serves no purpose other than that.
Have you ever dropped your bow?
I
Like,
have
shot it?
not.
I have.
I have not. And now that you say that, I'm probably going to think about it next time I shoot.
I just lived rent-free in Sam's brain for this coming archery season. Johnny said, don't drop my bow.
I'm gonna be looking at a 160. I'm gonna be like, dang it, John! I'm about to drop my bow out of this tree stand because Johnny said that on that podcast on episode 200.
Yeah, one of the things, you know, so this is like looking at social media. You look at archers on social media, Instagram specifically, what I refer to. And I'd always see these people, like, I was new to it, and also I was like, do you have to do that?
Right.
Where they go full draw, they shoot their arrow, and then they do the like waterfall with their bow down
Dude,
the front.
that
You know
is
what I'm
one
talking
thing
about?
I've never understood. I just and no offense to anybody that does it. If you shoot well and you do that, like, more power to you. I have no problem with it. I just don't understand it. I just don't.
I can tell you this. Sometimes I have done that without being aware of it. And that's also when I'm focusing on not having torque on my bow.
So to me, because
But there's a lot of times where it's like I have to intentionally do that to
right. And that's what I wonder sometimes. But to me, like, that's my other little pet peeve in the area that I spend a lot of time working in with my own equipment is the balance of my bows. Because when I come to full draw, that's why I run a back bar on my hunting setup. That's why I run a longer front bar. Because when I come to full draw, I want that bubble there. I don't want to have to think about which, you know, if I'm off a little bit on my level. I want that bubble on my sight there. The sight has to be tuned right. All your axes have to be on point. But then the balance of the bow also plays a factor, which is why I run the back bar, to offset the weight of the sight, to offset the front weight of the bow. Because when I shoot, I just want my bow to just kind of settle. Just the weight of the bow kind of hits my hand. It just kind of settles down a little bit, but there's no other movement than that. Everything else should be the same. So when I see somebody that has their bow rotate forward like that, my thought is just there's so much weight on the top of their bow, like above the grip,
that it
naturally wants to fall. And to me, that's just, that would not be, to me, that's not a fun bow to shoot. Right. And I get it. It's personal preference. I'm used to several years now building out a bow that is perfectly balanced. So that's what I'm used to. Mm-hmm. But to me, I see that, and I'm just like, I feel like it's going to start doing circles around their hand like a cowboy spinning his pistol or something, you know?
Right. So that was, I mean, it's just so interesting. You know, people learn from watching others.
Right.
So you got to be careful of who you're watching, and to then say, well, just because it works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for me, and have the wherewithal to be like, oh, okay, I need to not do this just because they do it.
Right. That brings my mind and ties back into the podcast a little bit, just in you talked about it. There's so many people out there, right?
Yeah.
You can Google, hey, why is your bow rotating forward at the end of your shot good, and you'll get a million answers. You can Google, why is your bow rotating forward at the end of your shot bad, and you'll get a million answers, right? Pretty much with internet and social media, you can get the confirmation bias you're looking for, essentially, you know. But tying it back to the show is there's so many people just over the course of 200 episodes. You have more than we do, so you've seen it too, that want to criticize you for something at some point, Oh, he's doing this hunting tactic. He's doing this on his lease out there in Texas. He had Charles Beatty on his show, or he has a personality of a mop, whatever. It's like, dude, if you don't like
at least it's a broom.
At least. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Because it is not...
It's not the critic who counts.
Exactly.
It's not how the man points out the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better.
Yeah.
Credit belongs to you, the man who's actually doing it.
We are going to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And doing it in the most authentic way we believe that we can do it. There's people who don't care for it, who don't care for my voice or my personality or your voice and your personality. They can go find another show. And I have no problem with that.
Yeah, they can go kick rocks. Definitely. I will say that when I was in my undergrad for teaching, I had a professor tell me, he goes, hey, there's going to be some students that you're just allergic to, and some students are allergic to you. And it doesn't matter what you do or how you are, you're not going to jive with them. That's why I use the term allergic. Like, it irritates you.
Yeah.
Something inside you. I will also say this, any pub is good pub, right? So if you're getting comments, it means people are watching.
You're helping my algorithms right there.
Yes.
Comment away.
Now, come on, give me another comment. Let's go. Share it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the other thing is it's just, there's always that part of you that's like wanting to go keyboard warrior on it, and you're like, no, it's not worth it. It's not the time or the place.
Well, and you're never going to change someone's mind.
Right.
So if it makes you feel better to respond, go ahead, do it. But if you don't want to put that energy into it, then don't cast your pearls of swine, baby. Like it says in the good book. This is also why I put the explicit tag on my podcast. Number one, because I don't believe in censorship. Like, you come as you are.
Right.
Like, let's go. No filter. Raw, real. I had a guy comment on... I released a pretty good episode. It was talking about food and government, and it went full on just how everything's a lie in this world. And he was like, I don't like how you were dropping Bible verses in one sentence and the next sentence dropping the F word. And I'm like, well, he said it bothered him. And I was like, okay. And I was like, man, I could respond to this email negatively. I could just not respond. But the guy says he's been listening for a while, likes my stuff, and now is choosing to no longer subscribe because of this. And I was like, let's have a conversation with this person. Let's give him some time of day. And I responded, I was like, do you think a swear word is a sin? Like, is that why? Mm-hmm. Or is this indoctrinated? Because I truly believe that there's certain points that will never get across unless certain words are used.
Right.
God dang it, son of a gun. That really hurt my feelings. Like,
son of a biscuit.
You gotta have... There's emphasis on the correct syllable.
Right.
Because when the emphasis is on the wrong syllable, it completely changes the meaning. So when I say the emphasis on the right syllable, even though the letters are the same, I'm saying it syllable, it completely loses its meaning. Point being is, whatever you do, do with purpose.
Right.
Don't randomly, I'm not dropping F-bombs in all conversation, but when it sure comes for it, you bet your sweet ass that, that I'm gonna use a word that means no. And I was talking about COVID and the jab, and when I was told take the jab or get fired, and I was like, no. That was my family's livelihood. You don't cross this line in the sand. And so for me, there needed to be a little bit more emphasis behind that no, rather than oh, are you sure? Are you sure? I mean, no. So the point being is, like, some people are going to be allergic to you. Some people aren't going to like how you roll. You aren't here to please people. You're here to please, well, if you believe in God, please your higher power, please your wife, your spouse, please your kids, but do it in a servant attitude.
Yeah.
Right? To be a servant of all, to do it out of love, lead with love. And if you lead with saying no to somebody, regardless if there's an extra F word in front of that no, if it's leading with love, and the love for yourself, the love for your God, your country, your family, then you're doing it right. And that's what I believe.
Very well said, man. Very well said.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back.
We are back. All right.
So Sam took care of his family.
Yeah, quick intermission right there. If you were watching the video or whatever it might be, we had to take care of a kid in the background. That's one thing that happens.
It's the podcast life.
Exactly.
We're not Joe Rogan. We don't have our own spaceship studios, right? Like, yeah, we do it out of our homes. Let me flip the tables on you real quick. This is your 200th episode. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, man. That the pep and the cheese. I love that. It's a great combo. Are you where you thought you were going to be by the time you got to 200 episodes?
No.
You think you were going to be further ahead?
No.
Or did you not even think you were going to be at this point?
I've gone through so many phases, as you know. When we first started, like, I can remember how when we got 20, 30, 40 episodes, it was like, oh my word, we've got this many already. And then at one point, I remember even my dad asking me, he's like, how do you always have something to talk about? Aren't you going to run out of things to talk about at some point? And I kind of always have that in the back of my mind, like,
no, because you stay obsessed.
Well, maybe, yeah, exactly. We stay obsessed, but there's been times where things would dry up, or you have people that you want to have on your show that aren't returning your messages, or guests cancel, and all of a sudden you're scrambling to get an episode together and whatnot, and you're like, man, is it worth it, or have I maxed out on what this show can bring and stuff? But to your point, we're always obsessed, right? There's always another hunting season. There's always another year. There's always more experiences. There's always stuff to learn from. And then the amount of people that, after 200 episodes, that I still haven't connected with that will one day be on the show.
Right.
There's so many out there. And then you look at, there's other podcasts out there that are in the 300, 400, 500, 600s of episodes in the hunting and outdoor world. Yeah. And it's like, there's a lot of ground to be covered if we put our head to it and have after it. But you asked if we're where we thought we would be. When we started this, I probably didn't have an episode 100 or an episode 200 milestone in my mind. I mean, I'm sure I thought about it, but it was probably also just like, man, I don't know if we'll ever get there, And even after 100 episodes, there was several, in the 100 to 200 window, there were several times where it was pretty challenging, right? To put stuff together and make stuff happen. So as a brand, as a company, as a show, as far as how many people are listening to this show, especially now thanks to Carbon TV, like Carbon TV, as you know, you're in the Carbon Network as a producer.
The Carbon family.
The Carbon family is amazing.
Yeah.
And what they're able to do for show producers like us, the people that listen to the show through Carbon, is unbelievable. And so to answer your question, no, I didn't think that we'd be here, because I didn't think that this many people would want to listen to me for this long. I did not think that we would have the listener base that we have now.
Yeah. By the time this podcast airs, when I say this, I just released episode 277 today.
Yeah.
And when I first started my podcast, I actually only released 2 episodes a month.
Really?
I was bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, yeah.
And I was like, because I didn't want to commit. I was like, am I going to like this?
Right.
But I started the podcast as an opportunity to learn and grow. And it really helped.
Yes.
Like, everyone who's listening to this episode, this podcast, if there's something you want to learn, then go create a platform and then go get the experts. It's an opportunity to get instant access to experts.
Yeah.
In whatever field that is. Ours just happens to be hunting. And then all of a sudden, freaking Randy Newberg's been on my podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, heck yeah. And that was an excellent episode. Except for his audio. Out of all the days, he has a podcast studio. He had to record from home. And his internet was cutting out a little bit. But
I've had a few guests like that.
but I'm like, dude, from Big Al Morris of Fox Pro to Randy Newberg to, I haven't had Cam Haynes on my podcast yet. He's one that I'm gonna stare down the barrel here soon. To Aaron Snyder, you're a big archery guy. You know who Aaron Snyder is? I was just chatting with him. We're trying to schedule a date. It's like all these people that you watch on YouTube, or it's like, oh man, they are so good, or they know how to do it, or they know everything, or whatever. It's like, I don't know everything. I just have an opportunity to sit down in front of them and capture their attention for a little bit. And then people listen, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Because the questions that I ask or the energy that I bring just changes it up just enough that even if they've heard somebody as a guest be on a different show, they haven't heard it through my lens.
There's been a lot of guests, and to that point, and I mentioned it earlier, the people that you get to connect with and meet, I wouldn't get to do any of that through this platform. I had Melissa Bachman on our show, one of the very first female hunters in outdoor media, ever, to make it big, that is. And like, even as a show host, you're about to sit down with somebody like that, and it's like, this is my show, and I'm kind of nervous. Like, you get that feeling every once in a while with somebody. I have one interesting thing too, has just been to sit down with other podcast hosts and learn about their journey, learn about what they have done with their show and what they get out of it and everything like that. You, obviously, Kurt Geyer from Working Class Bowhunter has been one. Christy Titus, Amy Hall, these are all people that have their own shows, but having them as a guest on mine, you talked about it right at the beginning of this episode on how you can be talking about somebody else. When we were talking about solo episodes, right? You're talking about somebody else and learning their story. Well, here's a podcast host that's been on the other side that interviews all these people. Well, now I want to know about them, And so to that point, people get something out of that, because you might be a listener to Working Class Bowhunter with Kurt Geyer, and it's like, well, I want to know more about Kurt and how all this started. So here he is as another guest on another show. Doesn't have to be mine, but another show, just an example. So that's been really cool to get to connect with those people. And it's, this, we've talked about this. There's almost like two sides to this hunting and outdoor industry.
Oh yeah.
And as far as the kind of people that are out there, and I definitely am grateful to, at least I feel like, getting plugged in on the right side of it. with the right people, and people who genuinely care, who are authentic, and the person that you see on their show or on their podcast or whatever it is the real person. Right. Is the person that, you know, you think they are. Because I've been that guy that I will, you know, watch somebody's show or something like that and develop an opinion of somebody, and then you get the opportunity to meet them in person. You're like, huh,
you're not who I thought you were.
Interesting, man. Yeah. Interesting. So I've been in that boat. Another cool one. I've told some people about this. Guy named RJ Ciancerulo. His parents, Ralph and Vicky, have a show that's been on the Outdoor Channel for decades. Archer's Choice and The Choice. And I remember, like, growing up with my dad, watching their show and seeing him on there as a kid. He's younger than me. And now I'm like friends with that dude. He's been on our show a couple times. We text each other he got married a couple months ago, and text him, hey bro, congrats on your wedding. You know, it's stuff like that. It's like, when I was a kid, I would have never thought that, you know, this dude would be somebody that I would call a friend, you know, at one point. But sure enough. And it's just, there's so many people, but it's a small world at the same time.
Tiny world.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I will say this, that I love podcasting.
Yeah.
If I could do this full time as my full-time job and have a crew behind me so I didn't have to worry about the editing and the social media and all that. Like, if I just got paid to talk and ask questions and listen,
it'd be awesome.
Maybe I should just be a counselor and just podcast counseling sessions.
I don't think you're allowed to do that.
They know what they're getting into beforehand.
They'll have to sign a disclaimer,
like, yeah, like, hey, let's talk about this and help people. That's actually, I'm going to write this down.
Your mind's about to be on display for the whole world.
Oh, man. Okay, so with that being said, it's just so much fun. You know what's not fun? Instagram shifting to reels rather than pictures.
All the algorithms.
Yeah, like everything's video based now, right? So for me, hunting, I already have a camera with me. I have a cell phone. I'm filming for my show. Then it's like, oh, but I also have to film for social media now, rather than, like, I also just want to hunt.
Yes.
So where does that balance come into play? Well, if you don't want to have a show, you don't have to have video. Like, I can create audio clips, which I do for my podcast, and put them out as reels and all that, which is great. But I'm like, man, it feels like you're always playing catch up in this game rather than just, like, steering it.
So I am not a social media expert. I probably should be, being that I manage most of the social medias, but
don't shit on yourself. That gets messy.
I am not a social media expert. So to that point, I do always feel like I'm behind on the algorithms, or what's trending, or what's popular, or what gets in front of the most people, whatever it might be. And then on top of that, and this can be a controversial opinion or whatnot, but I don't care. I feel like just the hunting world, you can tie it to firearms, or you know killing your own animals for your own sustainability, basically self-sustaining. I feel like all that stuff in that realm and the realms touching it are being suppressed at a social media standpoint. Yes. And I mean, it's been like that for a long time, where you're dealing with the throttling and the shadow banning and all this kind of stuff. And I saw a post, my buddy Nick tagged me in it today, actually, where I guess Montana Knife Company had it was just a picture of 4 of their knives that they posted on Instagram. Like, they weren't bloody, they weren't doing anything, they were just sitting on a rock or a table or something. And Instagram took it down because of the nature of the content or whatever they said. And Montana Knife Company does something where every time Instagram takes down one of their posts, they do a giveaway. So they were hyping it up and everything. Like, guess what, guys? Y'all get a free knife.
Yeah. Hey, throw one my way, guys. Come on now.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. What do you still have to attain in regards to hunting? Like, content aside, as a hunter, what do you want to accomplish?
That's a great question. So we had a meeting here at Fall Obsession, just our core group that kind of make things happen here, right? Within our staff and our team and our ranks. We had a meeting a few weeks ago, which we do periodically, and it was a big one because there was a lot of stuff we were talking about, like, hey, hunting season's coming up. We got X, Y, and Z in certain areas that are concerns, or we think we can do this better. How can we shift some things? And in that, I was like, that came up, like, what do y'all get out of this? What's y'all's goal? And man, I think if Fall Obsession never becomes anything more than what it is right now, I have well gotten my worth out of it, if that makes sense. The connections I have, the people that I've met, the opportunities I've had, like so many hunting opportunities. Some I've been able to take advantage of, some I haven't been able to take advantage of, from connections that I've met through this thing. Wouldn't have happened otherwise. The opportunity to document trials and errors, to document a little bit right now so far, my son gaining an interest in hunting, and hopefully that's just, obviously he's getting older, so that's just going to be more and more in future seasons. Having that to look back on, having all of these experiences to look back on. I talked about not that long ago on the show about how, like, my mule deer hunt that I am scared to talk about, because I ramble about it all the time. Not again. Here we go again, Sam. But that's documented. That's on video. After I killed that mule deer at 12:30 or wherever in the afternoon, and at 7:30 that night we were recording a podcast and camp about it. So for the rest of my life, I can go back and I can listen to how Sam Thrash felt hours after he finished that hunt.
Yeah.
That stuff's invaluable. Yes, we would all like to be monetarily compensated for our efforts, right? So many people would like to say that this is their career, that working in the hunting and outdoors is their career, and they make a living and support their family off of it. That's an amazing goal to have. It's an ambitious goal to have, but that, if you can accomplish that, man, more power to you. But that's not my goal. If that happens, then great. I'll embrace it. But to me, it's about the experiences that I have and the people I get to do it with. That's what I get out of this thing. So again, if this thing if there's never an episode 201, which there will be, but if there never were to be an episode 201, I'll have felt fulfilled.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Good. What animals do you want to kill still?
Oh, I got a list.
What is it?
So number one, it's been number one for a long time, is caribou.
Really?
Man, I don't know. I've seen so many caribou hunts, archery caribou hunts, and they're just these crazy, wicked-looking animals. Just, they look awesome. I want to get one.
Okay.
That's my number one.
When do you want to go to Alaska?
At some point in my life. I mean, that's what it comes down to. That and money, as you know.
Okay, so let's do it.
Yeah, I'm in, man.
All right.
I'm in.
I was supposed to go to Alaska to hunt moose for my 40th. And I just turned 40 a little over a month ago. And I'm not in Alaska this
I'm not going. What the heck?
COVID and moving and the way the world put a kibosh on that. However, what I want to do, I want to shoot a mule deer. I've never shot one. Seen a lot of mule deer, seen a lot of big mule deer, but the big mule deer that I saw were either out of season or on private land that I didn't get access to.
Yeah.
And then all the ones that were on public land were not legal. And I'm like, come on, baby.
Yeah.
So I'm a Westie that went east yet to kill a mule deer. So
yeah, man, like all of the Western game, like pronghorn, mule deer, elk, those are all animals that me as a Texas guy, like, it was my dream. And pronghorn was the first one to get crossed off that list. I would certainly like to go back and hunt pronghorn again.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the heck out of it. But and I've told you this before, I put my eggs into that basket so many years in a row that I feel like I wasted time when I could have been pursuing one of these other game animals, which is one of the reasons why last year the focus shifted to mule deer, and I got to cross mule deer off that list. Again, hopefully not the one and only time. I'd love to do that again, but I've experienced that now. So
Right.
For me, again, from Texas and really only being good for one big out-of-state hunt a year, it's like, okay, what's next? You know, I need to do something different. So this year it was Idaho elk, which I found out last week I did not get drawn. So now I got to wait until August 8th.
Oh, you didn't get drawn.
I did not. No. So my
I'm
buddy,
sorry. I'm laughing because I didn't get drawn either.
my buddy, he put us in as a part of a group hunt, I guess, which I'm not super familiar with what the success rates are for one versus
pros and
the
cons.
other. But
It averages points typically, or I don't know what Idaho is exactly, but if one person has a lot of points and somebody who doesn't gives them an opportunity to get in on it.
yeah, and I think that's kind of what he was thinking, because I don't have anything really to bank off of when it comes to that. So I know that was the thought process, but none of us got drawn. So now we're waiting, I guess, on August 8th is when we find out what's left over and if there's any realistic over-the-counter options for us, and that will determine whether or not we go on any trip up there. But
Well, we're gonna have to fix that coming up. I wanted to go to Utah for archery elk this year, but my camera died on my spring bear hunt, so that I had to go buy a new camera, and that cut into my funds to be able to go to
Yep.
Utah.
And man, that's the other thing, right? Is that we're not, and not to derail where you're going with that, but we're not rich. We're blue collar guys, you know.
Yeah.
We make normal salaries just like everybody watching this episode. So it's not like we can just, you know, oh, I'm going on this hunt and just drop the money and take off and go hunt with an outfitter and all that kind of stuff. No, and that's one thing I take pride on through our content, is that we're producing all this content, but our goal through the content is that it's realistic and relatable for the everyday hunter, because we are everyday hunters. You know, we just have the platform and we're sharing it. But I'm hoping that people can learn and relate to it, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, to that point, you know, it's like I said, I'm good for one out-of-state hunt a year, and that's both for my time, what I'm able to commit time-wise, and what I'm financially able to commit to it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm gonna have to connect you with Zach Hansen, author of Turning Feral, and we're gonna have to get you on a spring bear hunt.
so that's the other thing. You asked me what's left for me to kill, or I think that's how you worded it, whatever it was. But the
Yeah, what do you want to kill still?
so caribou and elk is on there. Like, I would say those are probably number one and number two. I've warmed up to the idea of bear hunting, because used to be I was like, I'm not gonna go bear hunting or anything.
Oh, it's the best.
You have me intrigued and wanting to fulfill the black bear
Yeah.
pursuit.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's got to hunt black bear.
But,
It's the best.
and this is what I haven't talked to you about yet, is
You're scared.
no, well, yeah, I'm scared. My bow only mentality,
Okay.
because that's something that I've leaned full into.
Okay.
And I will go to great lengths as an archer to be prepared to make long shots, but I want to kill him with a bow.
Okay.
And that's my goal.
Then do it.
Yeah.
It's doable.
Yeah. And I want to do it.
You know what the best part is about bear? Is if you want to kill one with a bow, and I have not done this yet, everybody, so I plan on it. I was planning on it this year until there's a lot of things that happen. With that being said, is bears, when they're feeding, they feed. Because they're the top dog on the mountain.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not like deer, they're like constantly like, oh, am I going to get eaten? Head up, head back down. Head up, ears around, flip. Like, dude, bears eat. Bears do bear things, and they're not scared. They'll wind you, and they'll run away, but the majority of the time, man, stalk in on one, make it happen.
Yeah.
It's fun.
No, I'd be down, man. And so the other thing that I can't say full send that I'm gonna do it, but I've watched a lot of videos lately on all of these grizzlies or brown bears and all these big bears, and I've watched some bow hunts with them, and it's pretty intense. And the adrenaline side of me is like, let's freaking go, but then the realistic side is I don't want to get killed. I don't have the Cam Haines mentality of, oh, if the bear kills me, that's okay. He earned it.
The YouTube channel Stuck in the Rut, you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I've had them on my podcast.
Okay, I was going to say you need to get them on the podcast then, because they have a great archery grizzly bear hunt.
Are you talking about the one where they got charged?
Potentially. They have a few of them.
They have a lot, but this one was from 2-3 years ago, probably now. I think we did a 2-part episode with them. I think it was like, I don't know, it's like somewhere in the 60s, some for episode numbers for us, but where they were like, he shot this thing 4 times or 5 times with a rifle, and it was charging them, and he had a revolver on his chest and emptied that thing into it at 10 feet, and that was it. It's like, that's the side of it where I'm like, oh man, I don't know about that yet. So
yeah, it's not your time. You're not gonna die from a grizzly bear. You're good. There's more of a story to be told than that.
So that's where my mind is with a lot of that stuff. And even down here in Texas, I want to kill a big whitetail. Like,
how big? What's big? What's a big whitetail?
160 plus.
160 plus.
Like, and I don't want to say that and people be like, oh, trophy hunter, but I've been hunting whitetails my whole life. The biggest whitetail that I have ever killed was 11 years ago. I shot a 140-inch 8-point.
And did it seem huge? Wait, is that it?
No, he's in the other room. He was big enough. He earned the spot in the living room.
Okay.
So, these are number 3 and down is these ones up here. But I mean, these are Texas deer, man. You know, these are Texas whitetails, and what a blue collar hunter in Texas kills. And a 140-inch buck is the biggest buck that I've ever killed. Mm-hmm. And just as a whitetail hunter, I want that opportunity to kill a monster, what I would consider a monster. And at the same time, I don't want it to be like I pay somebody for a hunt on a fancy place where I show up and they put me in a blind, and next thing, 20 minutes later, a monster walks out. I want to earn it. You know, I want to bow hunt, and I want to earn it. I want to hunt that buck.
So let me say this about that, which is very interesting. Because if you are hunting a lease, unless you're leased, because you get to know the deer on your lease.
Right.
So unless a random deer migrates a tremendous distance to all of a sudden show up at your feeder or on your land, you're never actually going to get to see those type of deer. Is that correct?
Correct. And that's why last year I was so excited, because we had one. We had easily a 160 10-point out there, and he was consistent. He had a pattern, and that's why Nick and I were stoked. We're like, one of us is going to shoot this joker, because he is consistent at one of these 3 spots. He's showing up every other day. Like, if we hunt and we hunt smart, we're going to kill him. Nick almost killed him. He's the only one that saw him in person. And then I had another buck out there that wasn't a 160, but he was a very respectable 8-point. Same deal. A deer that was smart, was obviously mature, but he was slipping. He had a pattern, and I was doing everything I can to hunt him smart and get an opportunity at him as a result. And the one time when I saw him in person was the same hunt that I had to get out of my stand because there were trespassers running through our property.
Yeah, which ruined the hunt. So the point at which I bring up that is, this is what's cool about Western hunting, is you can find the animals that you want to hunt.
Right.
You're not stuck to the boundaries of a lease. You know, and so it's like, and this is where it comes to, like, I can see why people pay to go hunt big animals, because at what point do you get to ever lay hands on an animal of that caliber?
Right.
Like, hello, people still pay to go to the zoo. They want to see animals, let alone touch one. Like, why are petting zoos so powerful for children?
Right.
Because they're interacting with nature.
Yeah.
In a personal, hands-on, all senses activated experience.
Right.
You can watch a 180-inch, 160-inch whitetail on a video all day, but it doesn't activate your senses.
Right.
You know, when you rub your hand on that back of that deer, or you see it at 15 yards and there's not a fence around it holding it there, it's like, holy smokes. And fence meaning, I don't really care about high fences. I don't want it to be a pen.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you, like, if a high fence is still enough acreage for it to be more of a natural setting, I don't care.
I don't have an issue with high fences. I completely agree with everything that you just said. I've hunted on an 11,000 acre outfitter's place that was high fenced around the perimeter, but you can't tell me that an animal living inside an 11,000 acre pen isn't a wild animal. You know, that goes for any animal on that place.
Right.
So it was still an enjoyable hunt, and it felt, I wasn't even the one hunting, I was just filming. But when we killed a mature buck on that lease, my buddy, it was super rewarding, especially because he didn't have any tree stands or stuff. He's like, if you want to hunt deer in a tree stand, bring your own tree stand. We're like, okay. So we showed up, he let us show up a day early to scout. We found a spot for a tree stand, and then the next day we hunted all day long, and at 5 p.m. he shot a 150-inch buck out of that tree stand.
Cool.
You know, that is hunting still. You know, yeah, we're on a high fence place, but we put in the work. We found the spot, and then we sat there in a drizzle all day long so that we could kill that deer because we knew he was in there, you know. And it's just that's the kind of experience that I look forward to. And I get what you're saying about Western hunting, and I certainly experienced that last year with the mule deer because we didn't realize until we mapped it on Onyx on the last day before we left. And the Burgess family up there is very well connected in that area as far as where they can have permission to hunt. But the home farm was 3,500 acres. We scouted over 68,000 acres in eastern Colorado.
Wow.
It was, when we mapped it, we were like, holy smokes. And we saw a lot of different groups of deer.
Yeah.
To your point, if you see one, you're like, nah, I don't like that one. Go find you another one.
Go find out.
Which I wasn't that mentality. My first stock was on a forky because I was ready to kill whatever I had the chance to. But
yeah,
yeah, I agree with that completely.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. You know what I want to get into is by the way, listeners, if you want to come hunt Texas, put in for their draws.
Yes, a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah, I'm letting the cat out of the bag right here.
Uh-oh.
Dude, like $3 per permit.
Yeah.
That's so cheap. Dude, I had to put in for elk in Utah. I had to buy a hunting license. Now, by the way, I'm complaining because I don't have a lot of money. But ultimately, us as hunters, when we're buying an out-of-state permit for that state and they require you to buy a hunting license first and all this, that money goes to conservation. So let's not forget that.
Right.
I just am broke. So, like, oh man, I have an odd to draw mule deer hunt tag for West Texas for $3. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Oh, alligator. Oh, free range nilgai. Like all this stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
Put me in. Let's go. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yeah.
Let's get after it.
Yeah.
Have you been putting in for those?
I have occasionally. I pick and choose a little bit, but actually, a few years ago, our production director Nick, he actually got drawn on a whitetail hunt out in East Texas that he put in for, and it was on a 5,000 acre piece. He got a very early archery season, so it was still burning hot out there. But him and I went out there. I filmed for him. We camped for 2 days out there during the window that he was allowed to go out there in, and we hunted. He shot a couple pigs. We didn't get a stud of a whitetail, but we had a good time. We had a lot of fun out there.
Wow.
So,
I mean, that's something.
yeah, exactly. It's an opportunity, right?
Yep.
It's an opportunity you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, you know, you miss every shot you never take.
Exactly.
Right. I played multiple sports, and in baseball, that was I always got really frustrated by baseball people. You know, like people that strike out not swinging. Like, come on, man. You're standing up there.
Yeah.
If that pitcher never throws you one good pitch, do you at least want to swing your bat?
Yeah.
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 Just swing it. Don't strike out looking. Anyway, so the point is, like, you're going to miss every opportunity you don't take.
Yeah.
So go up there and just swing at it like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't, man. Like, are your bills paid? Is your family taken care of?
Yeah.
Is your heart good? You know, then let it all ride after that.
Yeah. You asked about, I'm going to bring up one more that is of interest to me as far as a hunting opportunity, and that is a mountain lion. I want to kill a big cat.
Okay.
I don't want to do it with dogs.
Why not?
To me, there's just something that would tie it all together if I had the opportunity to shoot a deer or an elk or whatever and harvest the meat and what's left over of that carcass, to sit on that and then kill a big cat off of that. To me, that is just, I don't know. There's just something about that.
I thought cats don't go to kill piles. I thought they like fresh kills.
So my understanding is that, like,
This is how newbie we are.
exactly, and I'm a newbie. Somebody educate me. This might be another moment on Fall Obsession Podcast where they're like, "Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm going to stop listening." So, but no, I don't know what I'm talking about. But my understanding is that you can hunt them over, like, a kill or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And I know there's probably a greater chance if you stumble across their kill that they made.
Their kill. Yes.
Their kill. But I have heard of people also using their deer or their elk carcass if they're still hunting to hunt for lions or wolves or, you know, predators.
Predators for sure. I don't know about cats in that regards, but
And I may be off on that. That may be more of a wolf or a coyote thing or something like that. But I don't know. That's of interest to me.
well, I'll say this: if you want to kill a cat, this is what I know about cat hunting, and you don't want it to be with dogs, you have to go after a fresh snow and find fresh tracks yourself, and then sit down and call.
I want to work for it, man.
And you got to call.
And the snow part won't be a problem because in my life I have had 3 out-of-state hunts. Only 3.
Snow don't ever
And
lie.
all 3 of them have started with a nice little snowstorm. So the snow follows me, apparently. So it'll be there.
That's funny. Well, I mean, that is definitely an opportunity. And then also go to an area that's high in cats.
Yeah.
You know, I had a guy on my podcast. Man, you're really good at remembering podcast episode numbers. I'm always like, I have no idea.
I'm getting worse. The more I have, obviously, the worse I get. I'm good, like 130s to now. I can pretty much spit it out. But now, anything prior to that, it's like, somewhere in there.
You know, there's a guy I had on my podcast west of Abilene, western Texas, but south, like
Okay.
like west central Texas.
Yeah.
He goes, he kills cats all the time.
Yeah.
And like that's his thing.
When growing up,
San Angelo, down by
yeah,
there.
San Angelo. I've hunted down there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, growing up, the 10 acres we had backed up to a creek bed, I shot bobcats all the time coming out of that creek bed.
All the time. Like, how many bobcats have you shot?
Like 6
Really?
coming out of that creek bed.
That's a bucket list item for me.
I've literally killed 6 bobcats on 10 acres.
I'd rather kill a bobcat than a cougar.
Really?
Yeah.
I might hook you up with my neighbor across the street here because he sent me a Reveal Tacticam pic 2 nights ago of a cat walking the back of his property over there.
Really?
Yep.
I got a cat on my lease that I tried to live trap it, and it came up to my trap, but it didn't walk in.
Really?
Yeah. I'm learning how to trap also. Like, I just want to be a better outdoorsman.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, dude, cats.
Did you hear about the first mountain lion restriction in the state of Texas that they just put in?
Did that pass?
So
I thought that was up for, like, public
comment.
Yeah.
It is. I guess it still is in the public comment phase, but I have no problem with it actually. But all it is it's just a restriction on trapping, saying you can't have a cat in your trap more than 36 hours.
Are you sure that's what it is?
Yes. I actually, it hasn't, at the time we're recording this, it hasn't aired yet, but we actually did a whole podcast episode about it.
Well, then, I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I'm not trying to get off into that, but
No, listen, trapping, different states have different regulations. You know, you got to check every 24 hours, you got to check every 72 hours, you got to, whatever. My issue is, and this goes for politics and just as me as a human being, is legality doesn't equate to morality.
right.
So just because government wants to legalize or criminalize something doesn't mean people are going to follow it. So the point is that it really comes down to the heart of humanity.
Right.
Like, just, be good to yourself, be good to the people, take care, don't torture animals. And with that being said, is a restriction on hunting is a restriction on everything else, because it opens the door for tightening the squeeze and chokehold on anti-hunting.
I understand that.
And
we did talk about that in that episode on how, like, for example, the state of Texas has, did you know that there is a bobcat hunting season in the state of Texas?
No.
It is from September 1st to August 31st.
Yeah.
And there are no other restrictions. You don't have to have tags, or no certain weapon, or no time of day or night. But the 11 commissioners have established a season. So all that it would take is just a shortening of that season to then restrict it more, to your point.
Yeah. Well, so that has to do with the fact that they have to have a start to a hunting license.
Right.
So an annual hunting license has to have a start date. So it starts September 1st.
Right.
But, I come from the state of Washington where everything's taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, you used to be able to bait bears and you used to be able to run hounds. Now you can't do any of that. And now they've taken that away. Now they're taking away spring bear hunting. But you can still kill 2 bears every year. And then, all this different stuff. And so, give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And this is where this goes back to me dropping an F-bomb and be like, no.
Right.
Don't cross this line. You want me to come tell you how to live? You want me to start taking away your opportunities for your things that bring fulfillment and joy and feed your family? No? Oh, you don't? Okay, then why do you think it's okay to do it to me?
Right.
Oh, well, because you're hurting animals. Well, you know what? You can go
kick rocks.
Yeah, dude. This is where I get fired up, because it's all emotional relativism.
Right.
It's only relative to them. It only makes a difference if it impacts them. If it doesn't impact them, they don't care. But the minute it impacts them, so they're like, well, yeah, let's protect the wolves. Let's protect all this stuff. Let's protect these animals. Well, do you hunt? No, I don't. So you don't actually care because it doesn't interact with you.
Yeah.
But I interact with them as much as I possibly can, and it impacts me. It impacts my family, and it impacts how I go about everything.
Yeah.
So you're going to come and take that from me? No, I don't think so. And so this is where us as hunters and us as firearm owners, and I speak specifically towards firearms because it's Second Amendment, that if the people who owned guns and had a hunting license in this country actually stood up for what they like, and stood up in unity for saying, no, stop encroaching on my rights, my God-given rights. Like a Declaration of Independence says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is all good. Stay in your lane. Don't take away my pursuit of happiness because you don't like my pursuit of happiness. Stay in your lane. I'm not going to come after you. Don't come after me. And this is more of like a libertarian type concept, live and let live. The point is that you, and this ties back into the cougar thing, is you can't allow more government to get bigger and bigger because of one small thing, right? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
So we have enough chiefs We like, okay, everybody, you're a non-elected official making laws, regulations, codes that affect me, the taxpayer, on something that truly impacts me and impacts my children's future as well, all for the sake of you needing to come up with another law to justify your position in government.
Right.
Get out of here.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. It's, yeah, like you said, give them an inch, they'll take a mile. We're seeing it relevant to the hunting world with, I mean, you mentioned, you tiptoed into it, what's going on in Colorado right now, what happened with the wolves, what's coming up in November with the mountain lions. It's just, and you have said this before, I don't remember if it was directly on our show, I know you've said it on yours, talking about, how if we just sit here as Texans and, that sucks, too bad to be a hunter in Colorado, or too bad to, Kentucky right now. We talked about this on that episode I've referenced to, on how Kentucky just banned hog hunting up there. They want hunters to report sightings now. And we dove into that and had a lot to say about that one. But the stuff like that, we can sit back here and be like, oh man, that, too bad to be there. But how long until it's here?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, and this is where other states look at Texas and they're like, oh, they're arrogant because they always they fall back on, well, we are the Republic of Texas. We were a nation at one point. We can be a nation again. We can secede and all this stuff. And I'm all for that concept. And you're not there. So until you're at that point, fight for everybody. Right. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and if your weakest link has a lot of hunters, but they don't speak up in the defense of hunting, what's happening?
Right.
I've never been to a place in my entire life where I'm getting a haircut and the female hairdresser cutting my hair is talking to the other hairdresser about eating venison. And we eat deer all the time. I'm like, this is great. Because where I come from, when I provided wild game for the people that I work with, they were grossed out and then never ate it.
Yeah.
So there's this culture in Texas that, yes, you want to be left alone. I get that. I want to be left alone. Stop infringing on my rights. And to not say something is to say something.
True.
To not speak is to speak. Just like Trump and the silent majority, which is no longer silent. But the concept is that, stop being scared. Stop being afraid. Stop letting fear of repercussions dictate your life.
Yeah.
Lead with courage. No one's ever going to come save you. You have to save yourself. Save yourself. Save your family. Speak up. And you know what? It only takes a spark to start a fire. And it only takes one person to stand and not bow a knee. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I'll do it. I'll join them.
Yeah.
I'll join them.
It's contagious. Courage is contagious.
Yes. Stand up and speak up. And it's time. I'm actually... it's time to start some Soul Seekers rallies down here.
Yeah.
In Parker County. And then get it going. Because I see this. Everyone, it's too easy to be, I'm on this hunting lease within, and I think that's part of the problem, is that everyone's so used to being within the fence. This is my section, and this is my section, and this is my section, and you don't interact with other hunters, except in the parking lot of a Walmart, or, when you're buying corn at the feed store, or whatever. Like,
you see anything?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You don't interact and have to and realize where it's like, dude, we're gonna all fail if we don't just band together. It drives me nuts.
It's hard, man. And speaking a little bit to that, in Texas, I think it's difficult because there is so much confinement into our own fences, as you put it, and everything. And while we do have a lot of good things in our hunting culture that other areas of the country might not have, I also think that as individual hunters, we're segregated a whole lot more, because you go on a hunt out west and it is a lot of times it's you and a group out there, right? And it is a group effort, a team effort to be successful. Whereas, yes, you might be on a hunting lease and there might be other people on the lease with you, but outside of that, it almost like you're one bad neighbor away from having a feud or it being a competition on who's going to kill this buck. And then that's where lines start getting blurred on, you know, fences getting crossed and accusing each other of foul play and everything. And even it's hard when you have bad neighbors. And that's not just Texas, that's anywhere,
Right.
but it's hard.
The saying
It
goes,
is
a fence makes the best neighbor.
it is hard when you have bad neighbors. And I honestly don't know if I've talked about on the show before the trespasser that we caught out there this last year on our place, but that's an example. It's a fence line. I've never met the person on the other side of it. I've never seen them. I have made no effort to try and find out where their house is and go knock on the door, and that is on me. But I have never seen this person or really even knew if anybody was out there. And then in the middle of my hunt one evening, there's this pickup truck that just shows up and starts driving our property. Ruins my hunt. Was disappearing up into the property. Could have been ruining my dad's hunt. So I got out of my stand, I get in my truck, and I park in front of the gate between the two fences, and I wait for him to come back. And when he comes back, he's like, I'm looking for my dog. Well, I haven't seen your dog. And he was pretty rude and pretty disrespectful and acted like he belonged there. And I don't know who this guy is. I know the owners of the property, and I know who is supposed to be out there, and he's not one of them.
And you know that you're paying money to be there.
I'm paying money to be there. He is not. I'm deer hunting, which is the whole reason I'm there, and he's ruining that. And I told him, I said, you need to leave. And he looked at me funny, like, are you serious? He's like, I'm just trying to find my dog, man. I was like, well, your dog's not anywhere around here. I haven't seen it. And you're trespassing. You do not have permission to be out here. You're ruining my hunt. I told him, I pay to be out here. You need to leave. And he asked me, he's like, well, who's the owner? I can call the owner. I said, no, you need to leave. Because that right there told me you don't even know who owns the property. You don't care. You're just out, like, the fence doesn't matter to you.
Yeah.
It matters now. You need to leave.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's just, it's stuff like that, people like that, that make it difficult.
This goes back to my rude, stupid, and ugly comment.
Yeah, we are coming full circle 2 hours later.
Full on. Like,
Yeah.
This is the majority of humans are rude, stupid, and ugly, and so government, Big Daddy Gov, feels the need to make decisions for you because you don't have the courage, conviction, nor the willpower to follow the rules yourself.
Yeah.
But people actually do if given the chance and not put under the financial squeeze of having both parents work. And then, like, this gets ultimately to a cultural identity and how we're all slaves of the financial system.
Yeah.
I can break this one down very, very simple. This would have to be another episode.
No, I hear you. Yeah. I'm debating right now going down that rabbit hole, and I might not right now. That's okay. That might be another.
We can save it for another time, guys. If you ever want to hear me talk a little bit about that, come join me on Soul Seekers, the Soul Seekers podcast. We talk about things beyond hunting because ultimately it's about the soul. It's about becoming the better person. We are always chasing something, so it's like identifying what it is that you want to chase.
Yeah.
Right. Bob Dylan, Bobby D, Roberto Delon, as I like to call him. He did a song. I don't remember the name of it, but the whole idea was that you're gonna serve somebody.
Yeah.
So it might as well be God. You know?
Yeah.
And so, like, we are naturally drawn to the fact that there's a higher power beyond us. So if there's something beyond us, we're constantly going to chase it. And how bad do we want it? And then, you know, depending on our morals and our personal convictions of whether or not humanity is inherently good or whether they are inherently evil, determines how they go about.
Yeah.
And this is why I love the idea of the old Western, the wild West. It's because if everyone carried a gun on their hip, this world would be a safer place. Why? Not because more people are getting shot, but because you better mind your P's and Q's, because if you say something wrong, look at somebody wrong, do something wrong, there's a higher chance you're getting shot and killed.
Yeah.
And if there's no risk, right? Like if there's no consequence to actions, then there's anarchy, there's chaos.
Right.
So you have to be able to have consequences and allow those consequences to go without a consequence to your consequence.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't be put in jail for upholding truth and justice. Like the January 6th people. I'm going straight political. People have been in jail for 2 years for January 6th when they have shown that January 6th was not an insurrection. That's been dropped. And people are like, well, if they were doing things right, they wouldn't be in jail. It's like, well, did you know District of Columbia is not actually a part of America?
Right.
What are you talking about? Yeah, they have license plate, and on their license plate it says taxation without representation, meaning District of Columbia has no actual representation within the United States. It's not a part of anything. It stands alone, just like the Vatican in Italy. It's its own identity.
Yeah.
And so they have their own laws and their own rules. But a lot of this all comes down to people not holding knowledge and relying on other people, which we know no one's going to come save us. So you got to hold your own knowledge, hold your own skill set, rely on yourself, teach yourself, continue to grow as an individual so that you can, going back to the very beginning of this podcast, leave a legacy for others.
And I guess what I'll say in that regard is, as a society, we are, I don't want to say program, but I'm going to say program because I don't know the better
indoctrinated.
word.
I love that word.
There you go. We are set up just to follow.
To be passive.
Right? To be passive, to follow, to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
To work a Monday through Friday, to get your salary, to have your 2 weeks of vacation. And that's the grind for 20 or 25 years, however long, right?
It sounds horrible.
When you boil it down, yeah, it does. And I know there's probably plenty of people who listen to the show that are in that spot. And I have no beef with you or anything like that.
I'm in that spot currently, but I'm on my way out of it. Like
exactly. So the point I'm making is, you asked me earlier, like, what am I getting out of Fall Obsession? And I talked a little bit about that. But the other part of it is, I want to work for myself. I want to work for a team. Am I ever going to give up being a firefighter? Probably not. And that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother passion, and a whole nother part of my life. But I also don't want to just be stuck in that grind where I have to show up here because, and I have to do this mundane thing, and they're going to give me money and I'm going to go home. I want there to be some purpose. I want to have a say in my future and the future of the team that we're building. And I want the team around us to feel the same way, and that's where I think that, again, if this brand can continue to grow and can continue to expand, I think that's where we'll find more value in that regard. And again, if it never expands past this, it's been worth it. But we're gonna keep going.
Man, 200 episodes.
200.
You did it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
200, and I got to schedule 201 to make sure I have an episode for next week,
That's right, baby. Don't you forget it. I got some guests for you. If you ever need some guests, reach out, because I think there's some people that you haven't had on the show that would be pretty good.
I'll definitely reach out. The same goes for you too.
I appreciate it.
I have I got one or two right off the top of my head, and we can talk later. But
Hey, when is this airing?
August 12th.
Hey, congratulations, by the way, on being nominated for another Carbon Award.
I was going to bring that up, and you have caught me right as I took a bite, and I didn't think I was going to have to talk as soon. We got some elk jerky and cheese here on the table per our normal podcasting routine with each other.
It was a request.
Yeah. I'm going to try to get this bite down. But, yes, I did want to bring that up, that I guess at the time of recording, we don't know what categories. We can probably give it a good guess, but both of us have been nominated second year consecutive for Carbon Awards on Carbon TV, which I got Autumn's email, and I was stoked.
Yeah.
I was stoked.
Pretty awesome.
I couldn't reply fast enough.
You got an award-nominated show, man. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially with how big Carbon's growing.
2 years running, man.
Yeah. This is our third year.
Third year running for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to win. I'm tired of being second place. I'm a winner, and I'm going to win. Maybe not this Carbon Award. We'll see what category I get put into, but super excited about that.
By the time this airs, I'm sure that we'll know.
Yeah.
And I encourage our listeners to go check out both of our platforms, because we will definitely be posting all over it as far as how to vote and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, by the way, Carbon TV, for those of you who listen to this, I have a podcast and I have a TV show. Sam has 2 shows and a podcast. On Carbon, they don't link them to each other.
Right.
So understand that if you want to go watch video content, I have video content. If you want to listen to the podcast, it's completely separate.
Yeah.
I'm working on with them to be like, hey, I need you to merge this because I want to make sure people can find all my stuff.
That would be cool. Yeah, and yours are even easy. Like, even though they're not linked, yours are even easier because
it's the same name.
You have the same name,
yeah,
Soul Seekers
podcast and Soul Seekers the show.
Yeah, you have both of them. For us, Fall Obsession as a media production company, yes, we have Fall Obsession podcast, but all of our other shows are simply Fall Obsession Productions, and the titles and the formatting and all that is relative to the show host and the content itself and everything. So, like, example, Texas Dirt is one of our shows on Carbon, and if you look at the graphic, it's Texas Dirt, a Fall Obsession series, is how, and, you know, in the fine print below and everything. Midwest Mindset, produced by Mike Teepee in Michigan, is Midwest Mindset, a Fall Obsession series. So we have these different names, so you got to search, look a little harder to find Fall Obsession, I guess, on Carbon. But those are our other 2 shows that we have on there.
Hey, I want to give a little shout out to one of my personal sponsors, Kelby Rifles. We're doing a giveaway for the month of September. It was originally going to be scheduled for August, but because that's when they're doing the Carbon Awards, they asked if we could bump it to September.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely. So Kelby's is donating an action, a rifle action.
Awesome.
It's a short action rifle action, so chambering is a 308 bolt face, but any short action cartridge that falls within that family, it can be chambered in. But we're going to be giving that away, a $1,200 value in the month of September.
That's awesome.
So be on the lookout for that.
That is awesome.
Yeah, pretty excited. I mean, it's fun to give away stuff that is actually like expensive.
Yeah, man, and that's what's been cool. And big giveaways and little giveaways. Like, we've given away hunts at Fall Obsession. We've given away just a hat or whatever, you know, and it's just so cool to give something away in the winner's excitement. You know, I've never won anything before stuff. And man, one of my favorite things to do is, you know, we've done this veteran hunt the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And it is all entirely thanks to our hunt host, Waylon Langford. We wouldn't be able to do it if it weren't for him
Shout out Waylon.
donating the hunt itself. But one of the awesome things that I get to be a part of is once the winner is selected, there, you know, there's basically an application process, you know, to apply to be the recipient of this hunt. But once we choose our hunter, I get to call them and tell them that they won a hunt.
Yeah.
That is fun. Like, I have yet to actually call somebody and have them pick up. because, you see a random number, you normally don't answer.
Mm-hmm.
So normally it's I call, I leave a quick voicemail with a quick rundown on it that's to the point but descriptive, and about 30 seconds later my phone rings. And they're pumped and excited and everything, and that's one of the most enjoyable things that I get to do.
That's
is
cool.
just hear somebody's excitement when they find out they just want a Texas whitetail hunt.
Yeah, because you can never outgive good.
Yep.
Give good, baby.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to be able to outgive it, and it's rewarding. That's awesome.
Yeah.
If I was a veteran, I'd be applying for that.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll be doing it this year. It's always a lot of different circumstances and stuff. We're definitely going to try to do something along the lines for the veteran community, because we want to support our veterans and everything, and we try to do something every hunting season in some regard. But the only way you're going to find out what we're doing is by following along. So
That's right. That's right.
We're very open and honest about what we're doing. So
Beautiful. Sam, thanks for having me on, bro.
yeah, man. I was gonna say we're gonna wrap it up. We've been going for a long time. This will probably go down as the longest Fall Obsession podcast of all time. 200, baby.
Yeah, 200 and 200 hours. No, just chop it up to little pieces. It's whatever. Guys, thank you so much for checking, staying to the end. If you made it, all the way
If you
to
made
the
it to this point, you are the true listener.
Yeah.
You are the devoted one.
Really
Yeah.
want to say thank you. I'd love, if you wouldn't mind, go check out my podcast,
Yes.
Soul Seekers Podcast. Go to soulseekersnation.com as our website. We have a lot of informational articles, hunting stuff, content, online store, pick up some swag. Our mission statement is mentorship is conservation. If you want hunting to last for generations to come, you got to invest in the hearts and lives of other people. Period. Because hunting's not going to last unless there's people that are doing it and standing up for it. And it only takes one person, especially like a father, to now have a lineage of children and being raised in a family, a household that hunts, that is pro-hunting. And even if you don't hunt, being pro-hunting makes a difference at the ballot box. So that ballot box biology doesn't win. And so
Right.
we got to be able to vote pro-hunting, pro-Second Amendment, all that stuff. Anyways, thanks for having me on, brother.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming up and hanging out for a couple hours and knocking one out.
This guy's a stud. Guys, go check out all the stuff that Fall Obsession's putting out. Texas Dirt, Midwest Mindset, the Fall Obsession podcast. Stay obsessed, everybody.
Yeah, stay obsessed. Follow us on social media. Follow Soul Seekers on social media. Posting all the time, all sorts of awesome stuff. Head on over to the website, fallobsession.com. Everything filters through there. Pick up a hat and a shirt if you're so inclined. But if nothing else, the best way that you can support any hunting and outdoor platform out there, whatever they are, your favorites, Soul Seekers, Fall Obsession, is simply by liking, sharing, spreading the content and everything, because to us the way that translates is in the form of data, and data is what helps us build new relationships in this industry and keep things going. So if you don't do anything else, please like and share and do all that kind of stuff. We appreciate it.
And leave a rating, especially one that says the host of Fall Obsession podcast, he's not so much a wet mop as more of like a
Oh, now I'm a
dry
wet
broom.
mop. I was just a mop. Now I'm a wet mop. That's worse.
Oh man. All right. Well, hey, God bless. Be a
We'll
good
end
cheer.
it on that note.
Stay soulful.
Thanks, guys, for listening to 200. Back again next week for another episode. I'll catch you then.